Hi again folks, how you all doing? Welcome to episode 17 of In the Shed. Let's have a look at some of the other locomotives I've been working on recently. First up is this old Bachmann 4MT sent to me by Keith. It was suffering from all the usual woes these old split chassis models do, with split axles and warped plastic wheel inserts. I fitted new axles and drive gear and glued the wheel inserts, but this model also had a failing motor. I was able to replace it using a spare I had, but I had to swap the flywheel worms over. I've never encountered a failing motor on one of these old split chassis Bachmann models before, but there you go, first time for everything. It ran okay once sorted out, but as is typical of them, it was a little noisy and rough. You know, these old split chassis models do tend to kind of wear out. This Lima J50 was sent to me by Dave. It really just needed a good service and some new brushes. It was suffering from severe fluffage, a lot of carpet fibres and stuff that took a bit of cleaning out. Other than that though, it was okay. Not a fan of Lima Steam models to be honest, but the J50 is one of their better ones I think. This old Triang Blue Pullman was sent to me by Bernard. The motor bogie needed a complete strip down clean-up and rebuild. It seemed to run as well as could be expected once done. I also replaced the wheels on the unpowered bogie with wheels from Peter's Spares that have a live axle. That allowed me to add guitar string pickups to greatly improve the power collection and running of this old model. Noisy beast though, more often than not. Another old Airfix tooled Hornby 4F, this one was sent to me by Armand. The pickups on the collector plate were badly damaged, but Armand had supplied a replacement, so I fitted that and gave the model a light service and it ran okay. Not the quietest running models these, but they can run quite smoothly and they have enormous pulling power, it has to be said. Rob sent me this Hornby 08 shunter in a state of disassembly that he'd given up on. The chassis was a complete write-off due to Mazzacrot unfortunately, but fortunately I was able to pick up a spare chassis from eBay for a decent price, so that rescued this 08. Cleaned it all up, sorted the rods and pickups out, and this was back in action. Just lucky a suitable chassis was available, otherwise this one was going to be toast. Cameron, who sent me the lovely Hornby HST in ScotRail livery recently, also sent me this Hornby HST Midland Pullman. It had exactly the same failed motor problem as the ScotRail one, so it got a new motor and a bit of a once-over and was right as rain. This one was a wee bit more complex than the ScotRail one, with spinning fans and a 21-pin socket, so it appeared to be a slightly newer model. But the process of repairing it was otherwise the same. Replaced the motor and job done. Very nice looking model. Now then, venturing into doing DCC conversions, Alan sent me two models to convert to DCC, an old Hornby Class 155 and a Class 142 Pacer. The 155 was a railroad model and it really showed. A nasty cheap pancake motor, which I think is a Daypol motor, a very flimsy chassis and a split drive gear. Spares not available of course, but luckily all the axles on this model, including the unpowered bogie, have axles with drive gears fitted. So I was able to swap one over to correct the problem. Converting it to DCC was easy enough, but I had to hide the socket and decoder at the back of the drive car and run the wires the length of the body underneath the seating. A very tricky tight fit using very thin wires. The model ran okay, but a little bit noisy. Yeah, not the best model this. Similar story with the Pacer, again placing the socket and decoder at the back end of the power car and running very thin wires under the seating was the only way I could see to do it. Hard wiring the decoder, not using a socket, would make it easier to do the conversion, but I would always try to fit a socket if at all possible. It does take a wee bit of ingenuity to fit everything in though, it has to be said. This Pacer was one of the sensible ones from Hornby with a single motor and traction tyres, so once connected to the dummy car, it ran fine. And finally, a chap called Andrew sent me 4 locomotives to convert to DCC, a Hornby Class 86, Class 90 and a Class 91, along with a Lima Class 87. The Hornby locomotives all had Ringfield motors and finding room for the socket, decoder and the wiring wasn't an issue, but converting Hornby Ringfields for DCC can be tricky depending on the type of Ringfield. When converting from DC to DCC, the thing to remember is that the decoder essentially has a positive and negative input from the power collection of the locomotive and a positive and negative output to the motor. So that's 4 separate wires. On a Ringfield, more often than not, you just have one wire and a direct feed from the motor bogie casing. So you need to make sure that the brush terminals are isolated from the motor bogie. Next time I do one, I'll do a more in-depth video on the subject because it's not always straightforward, as I say, depending on the type of Ringfield. A Lima Ringfield motor is actually easier to convert because it doesn't conduct via the motor casing, and in this instance I fitted a CD motor as well, which makes the job of conversion even easier. Another wee complication was that all 4 models had working pantographs, which meant that the positive track feed was the wire coming from the pantograph switch, not directly from the pickup. All of these models from Alan and Andrew were really the first DC to DCC conversions I've done properly, so it was a bit of a learning curve. I had some issues with a couple of the sockets actually, and I think I learned 2 things from doing these conversions. Don't cut wires too short, and don't use cheap DCC sockets. Now I've got a few conversions under my belt. I plan to do a more detailed video on doing them at some point. I've had many emails from people asking me how to convert an old X337 Spider assembly motor to DCC, and my answer has always been, sorry, no idea, I don't do DCC. But now I've done a few conversions, I think I know how to convert one of these, so stay tuned for that. Now, seeing as this is an in the shed video, let's go and have a look and see what I've been up to with my actual shed. So, as you can see, the inside of the shed is all done and currently in use. I'm doing up my old mountain bike. My son wanted it. It was just sitting in my old shed, rotting away. So I'm in the process of fitting new tyres, new brake pads. That's the brake pads there. They're pretty worn. I think I'm also going to fit new pedals because I used spuds when I used to go mountain biking. And the original pedals there had toe clips on them. but he's just going to be using this for riding up and down the road to his work, I think, so we'll just get some ordinary pedals for it. So I've got a couple of power sockets put in, cable all running conduit as well, and I've got my strip light in this little makeshift box. I've got my fuse and junction boxes. I could have fitted a new fuse box actually and done away with an awful lot of what's in there, but I just used what I had. It's only a shed. And I've got some lovely new shelving, now already full of rubbish. My leaf blower and my lawnmower here will be going into a second shed oblique storage unit this week, hopefully, just waiting on that coming, along with all the other tools like rakes and shovels and picks and forks, etc. So keep this free as a workshop. You can see that the bench that came with the shed, I cut it down to fit into this space here. So that gives me a nice flat surface actually, that's quite good. And I've still got my old workbench. Right, so there you go, that's you up to date with the locomotives I've been working on recently and my shed. As I said in my last video, I'm going to be taking a short break from doing repair requests for a wee while. I need to catch up with servicing my own locomotives and doing work to the layout rather than working on other people's locomotives. And I've got lots of other non-model railway stuff to be getting on with. So yeah, I need to take a bit of a break from doing the repairs, but I'll still be producing videos servicing my own locomotives and work to the layout, so don't worry. Right, okay, that's your lot for today. I shall catch you later.